Hey everybody, it's the Investments Lawyer, and today we're going to go through a sample closed-end fund timeline. And remember, nothing we talk about is legal advice, so for that, find an attorney. Okay, let's dive in. So this is a sample timeline, like I said. Before the initial closing date, you're forming fund entities. You are working with your lawyers, working with your administrator, you're getting everything together. You're fundraising. But finally, once you're done fundraising and you hold your initial closing, you've officially admitted investors and you can start calling capital and making investments. In most funds, you can continue fundraising for about 12 to 18 months after the initial closing date. That's called the fundraising period. But after that 12 to 18 months, you're cut off. You're not raising any more capital, now you're focusing on investing. Now, like I said, you could start investing as of the initial closing date, and many, probably most funds do. But you can keep investing during what's called the investment period, which goes all the way to about 3 to 5 years after that final closing date. That investment period is where you're making new investments in new companies or properties. After the investment period ends, you enter what's called the harvesting period, where you might be making follow-on investments or doing capex or repairs on existing properties, but you're not making new investments in new companies or properties. You're kind of harvesting the gains that you've already made and hoping for more. So after about 5 years after the investment period ends, it's usually 10 years after the final closing date, so 5 plus 5, 10, the fund term ends. Usually the GP can extend by a year or two and the LPs can agree to extend by another year or two, but it's usually about 10 years from the final closing date. That's when the fund term ends. And at this point, it's not as though everything magically goes poof. Now the GP starts winding down the fund and distributing the assets. Usually the GP will distribute cash, but in some cases it might distribute assets in kind, which means not in cash. So this is a bit easier with things like securities, a bit harder if you have apartment buildings. You're probably not going to distribute an apartment building in kind, but you never know. So after that, the fund is over. The fund is happily in the grave and the GP can raise another fund. And remember, we had another video on open-ended funds, and those last forever. So if you're interested in open-ended funds, check out that video. I'll link it below about the difference between closed-end funds and open-ended funds. So thanks for sticking with me. If you like this video, please subscribe and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.